Alright, now we're starting to look like a motor, huh? I was going to box this off to take up the gap underneath the blower, but I'm just using strips in there in between whatever these little things are here. Make it look a little bit more interesting, I guess. I'm just shaving down some stock, get it to fit down in there. To me extra then. A little dab will do ya. While that's drying, start working on the Predator carburetors. That little sprue right there, Marcus center, and I want to pin these. So before I true the bottoms to make them sit flat, we're going to deepen that so I don't lose it. That way I don't have to measure, and I know they'll be straight. 3D print stuff is real brittle, so you have to be careful drilling it. Otherwise you can break it. Going into the bottom here isn't that big of a deal, but once I do the linkage or anything else, these are kind of like a block, so they won't be too bad. I do have a decent amount of room to go up for a pin. These are diamond sharpening stones for knives. They do a really good job when you need to true things up. That looks a little better. I'm using the kit blower, which was a 2-port injection, not really correct for the car, so I cut the stacks off, leaving the stanchions there, and then putting a little adapter on there to mount the carburetors. It'll kind of look like a plate, as long as it looks realistic. We're going to use some pins here. This is Albion Alloys aluminum tubing. I like using this for pins because I can bend it if I need to. And it's also easy to cut. You can use music wire, plastic, whatever you like. It should end up something like that right there. Work continues, just get everything as straight as I can. Get this water pump on here straight. We're going to do a electric fuel pump, so this little guy can go away. I'm going to start checking the pulleys. I think they're going for the world's biggest water pump pulley there, huh? I was excited when I was trimming all the parts off here. We don't have a Bluetooth alternator, we have a bracket. Look at that. It's the little things in life. But that excitement was short-lived because we have a Bluetooth idler. And since I'm focusing on everything that you can see, kind of looking down at it, that's not going to work. So I got to come up with something for that. Back to my original thought that the blower in this kit seems like an afterthought. The belt rubs against the other belts here, and then it doesn't sit straight, even though everything's put together right. I'd probably just shim it out a little bit. Yeah, I'll cut a piece, put it in between there. Try a piece of 20 in there. That 20 puts us right there. Thanks, Dad. I always say thanks, Dad, whenever I eyeball something, and it works because my dad just had this eye, man. He could just tell the size or anything, or if anything was level, or if anything was off a little bit. Seriously, it was impeccable. His eye was just so good. In our childhood home, he was a bricklayer by trade, construction. He did the whole backyard in block, like this whole flower garden around the whole entire backyard. And to this day, and when we sold the house not that long ago, that stuff was straight as an arrow. After like 30 years or some shit like that, it was just, gotta hit the eye. Alright, we'll let that dry and then we'll just trim it up there. What else can we do here? While we're at it, kind of made a mistake there. Should have rounded that to match the pulley. Wasn't thinking. See if this will work. One good thing about Tamiya Quickset is even though it'll hold, and it's welded, right? I just did that a couple minutes ago, and it's still on there. I'll spin that. Now while that stuff dries, I want to pay attention to the blower here. Remember I said I filled that in. I made an adapter plate for the Predators because it needed one. And I also added, is that the back one? That is the back one. Just a little locator back here that may work with the linkage or whatever I need it for, but also to keep the carburetors straight. So we'll use that one as a home base. And then this one will slide on there like so, just so I can keep them straight, Yeah, I added a bunch of little chunks around this thing because this was the kit with the 2-port and it wasn't correct and it looked all funky. So I just put some strips in here to kind of close it in. We'll leave that open just because it looks interesting and it still works mechanically. But I have all these little spots right here, like there and there. A couple little spots on the bottom of the manifold where I filled in there. So I want to fill these. I don't want to use CA. I could, let it flow in there. But there's something else that I use that's actually pretty great, which is Mr. Hobby Dissolved Putty. Their putty, which is really good, but this is just a dissolved version. So it's almost kind of like a sprue goo. What I like about it is I can let it flow into something, and then once it dries, I can actually kind of like scrape it and sculpt it or sand it if I need to. But yeah, this stuff is really, really stinky, but it is pretty great. So open it up there. See that stuff? Had it a little while. I need to clean up the top of it though. If you use a lot of it, it will shrink a little bit. So you'll have to let it dry and then maybe go back and give it a little bit more. See how it just flows right down in there? Go ahead and hit the side here. I can let this flow into my little seams here that were okay and not great. I'll just add a little fillet in there and make it look like it was supposed to be. Alright, that'll work. What next? We'll check our headers here. These heads had a little bit of a short shot on them. I probably have to do some fixing. Tiny little bit. Since we're going 70s flavor, these will probably end up flat white. Maybe do some rust on them or something. I'm not sure yet. Like what level the car will be finished at. Like fresh build or something that's been driven for a little while. Now I do a little motor stare session. Just double check the work. Kind of see how everything looks together, Get some ideas on colors. Need to do a little bit more fitment up here underneath the carbs. That's fine. But now I can start thinking about how I want to do the linkage and the fuel lines and everything. I was glad I did the manifold this way instead of just blocking it off. Then my buddy Jamie in Messenger said it almost looked like a liquid air intercooler, which really wasn't a thing back then, so I'll probably just leave that how it is. The front drive system looks good. Yeah, overall not too bad. I'm doing a good job with the simplification, how I want to simplify this build and focus more on paint and everything else. And I like doing this. I think it's more accessible for everybody that follows along, unlike Donnybrook, which had a lot of aluminum and I use a lathe and the drill press and everything else. This is actually turning out to be kind of fun, minus, all the fitment issues that I've been dealing with. Which brings to mind, like back in art class, right? Like painting on canvas, we were taught to have a focal point. It's like your main subject matter of the painting. And that's really what you focus detail-wise, and everything else is just kind of more vague forms or shading or anything like that to help with the overall composition. The same principle can be applied to model building, like how I'm just focusing mainly on this area, keep everything nice and neat and, well built throughout here, but just the focal point of this, the body, the wheels and the tires, a little bit of interior work. So it looks good at the show on the little platform, and then also it looks good once I bring it home and put it in the case and put it on the shelf with everything else. Now the Willys, I'm not stopping on that. This is just a little breather for the fall show here. And the Willys has almost as much scratch built stuff as Donnybrook will, which is more long term and super, super fun. So I'm actually getting excited to get back on that. So we got to get this boy done here, huh? Later.